What's up, guys? Welcome to the Breakdown. My name is Andrew. This week I got with me, no stranger, Mr. TJ Joy. How are you?
I'm doing well. How about you, man?
I'm doing good.
You're not going to share with them my hidden tattoos, are you?
Yeah, what are you talking about? Yeah, so what TJ's talking about, in the pre-service on Sunday, Miss Amanda Keeler was hosting with me, and she has this tattoo of her college apartment number, and I don't know. I mean, we all do silly things in life, and that was one of hers. So we talked about that.
Do you remember your college dorm number?
I don't remember going to college, so there you go. So
I didn't mean to bring that up, bro.
Bringing that up. Anyways, all right. Well, hey, man, it was good this week to have Pastor Robby back. Yeah. Man, such a great topic for such a time as this, investing in the next generation. So if you're a parent right now, man, great conversation with how we can be discipling our kids. I want to encourage you to go watch it. If you have not watched it yet, maybe you're not a parent, but I'm telling you, the principles in this week's message were unbelievable. I still want to encourage you, go back, take notes, glean from that. God has something for you in that also. All right, so TJ is going to kick us off with the passage we're in this week.
Yeah, Judges 2, verse 6, it says, "Previously, when Joshua had sent the people away, the Israelites had gone to take possession of the land, each to his own inheritance. The people worshiped the Lord throughout Joshua's lifetime and during the lifetimes of the elders who outlived Joshua. They had seen all the Lord's great works he had done for Israel. Joshua, son of Nun, the servant of the Lord, died at the age of 110. That'd be cool.
That's pretty old.
They buried him in the territory of his inheritance in Timnath-Heres, I think.
Okay, again,
something like that.
Breakdown tip we give you. You come across a name, a place in the Bible you don't know how to say. You just say it with confidence, and nobody knows any wiser.
I'm just going to skip it.
Just skip it.
In the hill country of Ephraim, north of Mount Gosh. Dude, there's just so many names. So many names. That whole generation, this is the key verse here, the whole generation was also gathered to their ancestors. After them, another generation rose up who did not know the Lord or the works that he had done for Israel.
Okay, so how quickly we forget, y'all. Like, you have a generation of people who have seen God do all these things, experience God in all these ways. The next generation easily forgets. I'm quick to point the finger at that generation sometimes, but then I'm reminded that that's me at times. Man, I just quickly forget what God has done in my life. So, TJ, Pastor had two warnings for those of us in the room who are discipling the next generation that we can avoid, that we see in this passage. So do you remember what those were?
Yeah, the first one is don't suffer from spiritual amnesia. And the second one is don't neglect discipling your family.
Yeah. So let's talk about spiritual amnesia for a minute. What does that mean?
Yeah, it's forgetting who the Lord is. I mean, that's what we see in the scripture. There was an entire generation who didn't know, and it's because there wasn't discipleship happening. From Joshua's generation on. Yeah. We see that in European culture with the whole post-Christian idea. A generation of people weren't discipled, didn't know the Lord, weren't in church, weren't growing in the Lord, weren't taught the things of God. Yeah. And now you have this post-Christian culture, and we're starting to see that infiltrate America as well. And it's because there's so many people like you and I who have children and believe in Jesus, but never really taught that to our kids. Yeah. And so you're seeing that culture rise up.
You know, Pastor mentioned this, that there's a difference in knowing somebody and knowing about somebody.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I used to give this illustration of when I was a kid. My favorite athlete was Michael Jordan. I mean, it was right when Space Jam came out. I mean, it was when he played baseball for a little bit. You know, it was all that when I was a kid. So I was a huge Michael Jordan fan. I could tell you all kinds of information about him, about his high school team he got cut from, why he wore the number 23, because it was as close as he could get to half of his brother's number. I could tell you he's probably wearing Hanes underwear. I could tell you all that stuff. He was a sponsor for Hanes underwear, which is that was a joke. But anyways, I could tell you
the things that make it into the breakdown.
I know. I could tell you all these things about Michael Jordan, but if I were to see him on the street, I would know who he was, but he would have no idea who I was. That's because there's no relationship there. And unfortunately, in our culture, man, that's the scariest thing about living where we live, if you ask me, is there's so many people that have information about Jesus and will one day stand before him with no relationship with Jesus, but they'll be surprised. Like legit, they'll be surprised because they know so much information about him. I was going somewhere with that, and then I just blanked.
Well, I think it's...
Pick it up from there, TJ.
Yeah, I think you bring up a great point. I mean,
that's what I was waiting on you to say.
The scripture said, that's right. The scripture talks about how there's going to be many who say, Lord,
right.
Lord.
Right.
And he's going to look at them and say, I never knew you.
Yeah.
Right. There's so many people who believe they know Jesus, but even Satan himself knows who Jesus is.
Yeah, exactly right.
The question is, does Jesus know you? Do you have a relationship with him? And unfortunately, many people don't.
Okay, so spiritual amnesia. Let's go back to that. We kind of lost it. Tell me, what's a way? You don't have to give me an example, but what is a way maybe you have suffered from spiritual amnesia?
Yeah, I think going back to the cultural thing, you talked about living where we live. There's this cultural Christianity, and I think a lot of times we get so numb to the gospel because we've heard it our whole life.
Yep.
And sometimes we just need to remember what God's brought us from.
Yeah.
And look back at our past and realize God has brought us a long way.
Yeah.
He's brought us through sin. He's brought us through hardship. He's walked with us through pain and suffering, and it kind of helps us to remember. But there's so many times where when something's happening in our life, and our immediate thought is not to go to the scripture.
Right.
It's not to look to the Lord and say, what does he say about this? It's man, what do I need to do here?
Yeah.
What can I think of? What can I do myself? And so we have that amnesia. And so we need to constantly remind ourselves, like in Deuteronomy 6, which Pastor talked about.
Yeah, and that's good. So for me, I'm hard-headed. I mean, you probably won't believe that, but I learned most things the hard way. I remember when I was 15, I was so excited to get my driver's license. Like, I could not wait, y'all. I was out there washing my truck every day. I couldn't even drive it. I turned 16, I got arrested, and I lost my license the same day I got it for 30 days. Have I never told you that story?
No.
I'll tell you more of that story later. But anyway, so you would think that I would have learned my lesson. Well, just so happened, fast forward the next couple of years, all the trouble I ever got into was still behind the wheel of a car. Like, there's amnesia again, and I learned things the hard way. Now, very responsible driver. I drive like a grandpa now, and I got precious cargo in the car. So anyways, I learned things the hard way. Same thing spiritually. Like, we can have these high celebratory mountaintop experiences in life that are awesome, man. We all want those things. I think of any mountain I've climbed, the view is unbelievable. Like, there's no more beautiful place. And then I've had these really hard valley moments, the pain and suffering moments, where the view is maybe not quite the same as at the top, but it's in these valleys where I've actually learn and I grow. But I'm quick to forget what God has taught me there. I'm quick to forget, so I had to tattoo it on me. So I'm going to tell you one story. So because I'm quick to forget, so TJ is a bad influence on me. He started getting tattoos. So we both went and got our spouses. I got my wife's whole name on my finger. TJ just got an M, so he could remarry anybody with the name M. But I'm just kidding. Melissa, don't watch this. But after that, so I got Jenny's name on my finger, and then I went and got my boy's name on my arm. And so I got, Blaze, Asher, Casey, and above I got the word peace. People keep asking me, my boys keep asking me, what is peace? Who is peace? Well, peace is a placeholder for a baby that we actually lost that I believe we'll see in heaven one day. But peace is what God taught me in that season. So would I ever want to go through that again? No. Do I ever want anybody to have to go through that pain of losing a child? No, not at all. But God showed up and taught me something in the midst of that. Now, this is a way to remind me to teach my boys that. Transitioning to point 2, not neglecting discipling your kids. Like, now I have an opportunity because of what I've walked through, because what God has taught me, to now instill that into my kids, that even in these dark times, even when things are hard, man, God is with you. God is close. God is teaching you something, shaping you, molding you, etc.
Yeah, absolutely. Going along with that second point, he talked about discipling your family. One of the greatest lines I feel like of the message was, our job is not to teach our children what to think about the Bible, but how to think biblically. Yeah. That was the game changer for me. Yeah. Spiritually, I knew a lot about Jesus in college. I was a believer and tried to, read the Bible and things like that. But when somebody actually taught me how to see everything in life through the lens of the Bible, it changed everything.
Yep.
And I think the easy route for us as parents in discipling our kids is to, when they ask a question, for us to be like, well, here's what I believe about it. Or here's what I would say. But instead, we need to take them to the Word and say, hey, let's discover this. Like, let's figure this out together. I want you to learn how to hear from God and to see what God says about it, because that's going to teach them long term when they're going through hardship or when they're going through questions in college or whatever it is. They're not going to call mom and dad and be like, hey, what was it you said about this? They're going to go to the scripture and help. And if they're not
going to, and somebody's discipling our kids, that's something he said too. If they're not going to go to scripture, they're going to go to something else to get that answer. So I love that he said, teach them how to think, not what to think. And that's just something that we're experiencing in my household. So I got 3 boys that love to cuss. I'm just saying, like, every time they hear a cuss word, it's like they have to say it for some reason. I'm like, you are a pastor's kid. You cannot walk out here saying all this stuff. So if you run into my kids and they say something, I apologize. They've been learning from their mom. But anyways, so I'm just kidding. I don't know where they picked it up from. They've been hanging out with your kids. Anyways, so at first, I'm quick to say, hey, don't say that. You can't say that. You can't say that. Don't say that. That's a bad word. Don't say that. And I was quick to tell them what to do. But then now I've had to transition and tell them, hey, that when we speak like that, that doesn't glorify. They're just being funny. They think it's funny. But I'm trying to teach them why, hey, we don't, in our house, we don't talk that way. But
yeah. So my oldest daughter, we're walking through this as well. My oldest daughter got saved a couple years ago.
Yeah.
But now she's asking some really big questions, like, how do we know for sure that our God is the right God?
Yeah.
How do we know that He really exists?
As a 5th grader, that's a big question.
Yeah, really big. And Melissa and I are looking at each other like, what?
Yeah.
How do we answer this?
Yeah.
And that's a pressure that we shouldn't have to feel.
Yeah.
What we can do is go to the scripture with her and let's discover this together and show her how to find God there.
Oh, man. Okay, we're going to wrap this up. So much to unpack here, more than we can do right now in the breakdown. So Pastor ended the sermon with a couple great tips. I want to encourage you to go watch those, and some really practical things that we can apply. And I also want to let you know that we as the church want to partner with you, okay? We don't have all the answers, but we want to come alongside you and figure them out. Same thing, you can give that answer to your kids also, by the way. Hey, mommy, dad, we don't know, but let's figure it out. So we just be on the lookout. We're going to have some resources, some things that can help train you to navigate some of these hard questions with your kids. TJ, you got anything else?
You're gonna love it.
What do you got? You got anything
I was
else?
just gonna say LH kids, LH students.
Yeah.
Great resources to help you disciple your kids. So lean into them. It is the parents' job to disciple, but the church is a great resource to partner with you. So
yeah, exactly right. All right, guys, thank you so much for joining us on this week's episode of The Breakdown.